Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Do you know what the most fascinating thing for me today was? It was Micron's action at the opening bell and Micron's action at the closing bell. Because if you were following the memory stocks today, if you tracked the Fab Four and you saw their performance throughout the day and how they closed the day, you would think it was a strong day overall. All of the stocks were up. They finished strong into the close. It was a positive day. But in reality, that is not how the day started off. The action was very different in the early morning session because right out of the opening bell, Micron traded down. It opened at 321 a share, just over that. And within the first 10 minutes, it was down to the low of the day of about 311 a share. It was clearly the weakest name within the memory group this morning. And at the same time, while Micron was moving down under heavy selling pressure, the other three players in the Fab Four, Western, SanDisk, and Seagate, were all moving in the opposite direction. They not only held up, they were putting positive points on the board while Micron was moving down. It was a fascinating thing to see, and it made me scratch my head and wonder, what is happening with Micron? Why did the sentiment change so much for this stock? Why is it continuing to sell off under pressure while the three other players were moving in the opposite direction? Because it wasn't random action. What we saw this morning was a clear signal in the market that there was a distinction that was being made within the memory group, within the memory trade. But by the end of the day, but not even by the end, by midday, that setup flipped. Micron reversed. It started moving and reaching higher, and it actually ended at the high of the day of about 338 a share, up 5% overall. So today's video, I'm not just going to talk about how the memory stocks moved and why did they move up positive, because quite frankly, you can find that content in many places on YouTube. I want to focus on the fundamental question of why did the market start off by questioning Micron? Why did it decouple within the memory group? And then why did it flip? And why did it close the day with the stock being bought aggressively? That's what I want to cover in today's video. We're going to look at the signs and the signals to help us understand that. We're going to look at all four of the memory players and the performance they post today. And then I'm going to show you an article that just posted a little over an hour ago that gives me a strong sentiment or some optimism heading into tomorrow that we will see this momentum carry forward into the opening bell tomorrow. But if you haven't done it already, hit like, hit subscribe to the channel. Guys, I'm trying to reach 5,000 subscribers by the end of this month, essentially by today. I had a benchmark or a goal to get to 5,000 in the first 3 months of this channel, and we're about 40 subscribers away from achieving that goal. So if you like the content on this channel, if you enjoy what I put out each and every day, just take a few seconds, do me a favor and hit subscribe. I appreciate you doing that. Let's dive in and take a look at today's action and today's performance. I'm going to pull up something that I think we haven't seen in a while, and hopefully you feel the same way I do, and we just take a collective breath of relief, because it's been a while since we've seen green across the board in all of our favorite stocks and all of our favorite sectors. This is the NASDAQ 100, and we saw positive movement today in all of the sectors here. We saw movement in not only tech, in memory, in equipment suppliers. We saw movement in even in software. It was a strong day. It was a risk-off sentiment today. It was capital rotating back into these stocks. But let's be honest, we have a long way to go before we can be really happy and feel that we're back in a bull run, because we've lost a lot of shareholder value in many of the names that you see on the screen over the last 3 or 4 weeks due to all of the macro risk related, the geopolitical tensions related to Operation Epic Fury. But this is a nice first step. I tend to be an optimistic kind of person. I'm a positive person, and I like to see this first step. We need to see a second step. And I think the article I'm going to show you later could give you conviction like it does to me. Like, we're going to see a second step tomorrow as well. And that'll be putting 2 days of strong momentum together. And it's been a while since we've done that. So that's one of the things I'll be looking for tomorrow at the opening bell, and see if we can carry this momentum overall into tomorrow. But it was nice to see that what we saw today. It was capital being rotated back into tech. And the reason overall was there was a headline that hit the market right about noon Eastern, and it really flipped the script entirely. I'm going to pull it up for you overall. That clearly is not it. Here it is, this headline right here. And you can see that it says oil plunges. That's not necessarily the headline. The sentiment I want you to take away from this is the Iranian president offers the first signs of willingness to end the war with the U.S. Guys, this is the first time that I've seen in print. Maybe you have. If you have, drop it in the comment. But it's the first time that I've seen in print the Iranian leadership expressing that level of sentiment that they're willing to sit down, discuss peace, and end this war and conflict. I've seen the U.S. leadership mention it before. They had willingness to discuss and mention peace, a 15-point plan, but every time that was met with conflicting headlines from the Iranian leadership team that they were not willing to meet, they were not willing to discuss peace, they were not willing to end this conflict and war. They continued to threat further escalations in the market, which drove fear and anxiety. So when this headline hit, it felt different in the market. And what we saw was the Dow Jones jumped by about 1,100 points immediately. The NASDAQ jumped by about 4% immediately. It drove down oil prices. It drove down fear and anxiety in the market. That was what we saw today overall. And anytime that pressure is eased or released, we see capital rotate back into those names that I put up on the screen a few moments ago. We see capital rotate back into the highest performing stocks within the market. That's why the semiconductor stocks today in the afternoon session and overall, they just didn't perform. They outperformed the broader market. But let's look at the memory stocks because I think they also showed something very unique today, like I said in the opening. I want to first just show you how they looked at the start of the day. And let me refresh my screen there and pull that up. You can see Micron closed at 338. It was up 5%, about $16 today overall. So on the grand scheme of it, it looks like a great day. And it was a great day for Micron. It's a first step in the right direction. In the after hours, we're continuing to keep that forward momentum, that positive momentum moving forward. But look at that finish. I'm going to talk about that in a moment when we get to our candle pattern chart. But that is one difference for Micron today. It had such a strong afternoon session. But this beginning part right here is where we really did see that decoupling, where we really did see the market questioning Micron in the beginning and why it moved differently than the other stocks. And I'm going to tell you the three reasons why I felt that happened as soon as I finish showing you all these other stocks. But SanDisk closed at 635. It was up 11%, $63 gain almost on the day. It's moving in the after hours as well, about another $9, $9.50 gain, 1.5%. It's right now trading about $6.44 a share. If we look at Seagate, Seagate closed at $391, up over 8%, $29 gain. Really nice finish overall today. And it's flat in the after hours, holding at that $391. So it's holding that performance. That's a positive sign for me too, especially with what we've seen over the last 3 or 4 weeks with these stocks. And then finally, Western Digital up. It closed at 270 and a half. About 7.5% growth today, almost a $19 gain, and we see it pick up another $3 in the after hours, over 1%. Right now, trading at about 273.50 overall. So, guys, the sentiment for the full day was positive for the memory players. The Fab 4 had a strong day overall, but as I said in the beginning, we have a long way to go with these stocks. We know we've lost significant shareholder value. In fact, Micron's down 30% since March 18th when they posted their strongest earnings ever. So we have a ways to go till we get these stocks back up towards their price. But the difference we saw in the market this morning was interesting, was fascinating to me, as I mentioned in the beginning, because Micron clearly was a laggard to start today's action. It traded down while SanDisk, Western Digital, and Seagate all moved in an opposite direction. And that difference matters because it clearly showed us a signal that capital was positioning itself differently inside the memory trade, inside the memory group. Micron was being treated differently. It was kind of de-risking. Capital and investors were de-risking their Micron exposure compared to the other memory players. And it's the first time I remember seeing it clearly move that different direction. When we started this morning and I saw Micron sliding and the other ones were going, I was scratching my head and wondering why. And I came up with the 3 reasons why. I'm going to explain right now why I think we saw a bit of a de-risking of Micron exposure early today overall. First was the DRAM spot prices. So there were reports today that DRAM spot prices have declined about 6% since mid-March. We know that they're on track to reach, DRAM is to grow by 30-40% by the end of the year, but there is some reports that spot prices is down by about 6% mid-March, and that directly matters for Micron. This is a price-driven business, and even a mid-single-digit effect or a move can have a dramatic impact on their forward margin expectations. The second piece was analysts, like a change in a price target from a key analyst. So today, Citi reduced its price target for Micron from 510 to 425, but they maintained a buy rating. And this is an important factor, is that combination of, yes, we reduced the price target, but maintaining the buy rating overall, it's an important combination because it tells us that the long-term thesis is still intact, but the near-term expectations are being reset a bit, at least from Citi's perspective. And then the third factor is the ongoing uncertainty, I would say, that is surrounding the turbo quant. It is affecting Micron more than the other players. And it's the uncertainty related to the memory intensity and AI workloads, not in a theoretical sense, but in how quickly demand scales relative to efficiency improvements. And Micron sits in the middle of that debate more than any other memory player in the US. So early in the day, when investors were juggling those three stories, when we're looking at spot prices reducing by about 6%, when we're looking at a key analyst from Citi reducing its price target for the company, and we still have this uncertainty around turbo quant, it clearly had an impact on Micron more so than any other memory player. In my opinion, these were the factors that drove the decoupling from memory this morning, from Micron this morning, when SanDisk, Seagate, and Western Digital were moving in that other direction. Micron got hit the hardest by all of that uncertainty overall in the market. But if we look at the flows, or I want to just take a look at the candle pattern, because I think this tells us a clear, consistent pattern with all of these stocks as well. So let me pull that up. And what you can see first is, let me change the view here so you can see the volumes underneath. This is a 5-minute candle pattern. I'm going to show you all 4 of the memory stocks because there's one, some consistencies, and then 2, there's some real differences for Micron. But if you look to start the day overall, let me pull it here. Here's the start of the day for Micron. And let me pull it up and just pull it over. So this is the first 5-minute view. You can see where it opened. And in the first 10 minutes, it hit its low of the day of about $3.11 a share, as I mentioned earlier. So a lot of choppiness for this stock in the first half of the day, all the way down to about that 12 o'clock hour. And you can see significant sell-off to right about that 12 o'clock hour, right when that article came out that the Iranian president is signaling that he's ready to sit down and discuss peace. So look at that V reversal with Micron we see. This is a consistent pattern for all of the stocks. I want to show you that first. I'm going to pull it down. But first, let me just look at that volume to start the day. Look at how high those bars are relative to the rest of the volume throughout the day. And Micron at that point also was signaling into an oversold territory, both based on the RSI below here. So clearly very different when I show you the other stocks. Let me get rid of that. Show you the other stocks. Here's SanDisk start to the day. And if you just did a trend overall, that is a upward trend, a kind of ascending pattern at the beginning of the day. But they did have a V pattern down to that 12 o'clock hour as well. Not as steep of a V as we saw with Micron, but a similar pattern and a reversal out of that after that article hit, or the headline hit, or from that news article around the Iranian president's sentiment to meet and discuss peace. Western Digital, same phenomenon. I don't know why that keeps popping up. Sorry, guys. Western Digital, same phenomenon. Upward take here, down to the V pattern, and a reversal right about the noon time frame. And then we say the same thing. Seagate was a little different, straight out of the gate overall. Positive ascending pattern right from the get-go. But again, pressure down to the 12 o'clock noon, reversal up. Not, again, as much of a steep downward as we see with the other stocks, but all followed that same pattern. Micron just had a lot more aggressiveness to it. Significantly more volume with Micron too. If you look down here, the volume overall today was about 180,000. If we look at SanDisk, I think it's about 36,000. You can see Western Digital about 33, and Seagate Technologies about 24. So there's always a lot more volume overall with Micron. It is a significantly higher market cap company. It's on the S&P 100. There's just a lot more trading activity with this company. But You can see that reversal, that significant impact. And then the other piece that is different, I want you to take a look at this ascending pattern right here on how Micron finished the day. Look at that conviction, that accumulation we see throughout the finish, all the way up to the closing bell where it hit its highest moment of all of the trading session. It finished on its high of about 338 a share. That is a different pattern from Micron too. And I want to show you the others. The others had a similar pattern where they reached their high earlier, had a dip and some softening, kind of flattening out, and then just had a couple candles on the last 15, 20 minutes of trading that reached up higher. That's SanDisk. Western Digital, same pattern overall. And then Seagate, same pattern as all. Reached here, a bit of a down, but a nice rally here to finish as well. But compare those three to what we saw with Micron. Look at the steepness of that ascending pattern, those stairs that are moving up. That is strong accumulation. That is strong conviction to end the day. That's the first optimistic sign I have about carrying this action into tomorrow from Micron. Why I think we're going to have that second step or that second positive day in a row that we need in this market, that we need with these stocks, that we need overall for the tech sector. So that's the first piece, just how we finished. The second one I'm going to give you is what we saw in the after hours. So guys, if you look here, I'm highlighting, and this is the NASDAQ closing bell, right, or closing cross. And let me get my cursor out of the way. You can see right at the close, in the last seconds of the day, we had a $1.6 billion trade go across the finish line. So 4.7 million shares of Micron crossed the finish line at that trade price of 337.84. Really strong because you see this significant volume crossing the finish line in a day that was up by 5% already. So this is clearly showing us that it wasn't just retail traders buying the dip today for Micron. We see when you see a $1.6 billion trade, a block trade go through at the close, that is an impressive move. That shows us that the whales were accumulating as well. And we even see that accumulation in the dark pool. If you look to the far right, you can see the exchanges in the dark pool there. We saw consistent $1 million sweeps hitting the tape all the way up to about 5 p.m. Eastern. When the whales are this aggressive in dark pools, after a 5% move on the day overall, it usually means they are anticipating a continuation of this trend tomorrow when we open up the market. They're not anticipating a reversal overall. So this is a great sign for me from Micron. And the last piece I want to show you is an article that hit, and hopefully I can pull it up, an article that hit about an hour ago. And it's a sentiment from Trump administration. There you go. Sorry for that delay, but it says, Trump says the U.S. to leave Iran in 2 or 3 weeks. So guys, when you combine all of those stories, we see the Iranian president expressing his sentiment to discuss peace. We see the U.S. president saying that we're ready to leave, or we anticipate we will leave this conflict or war in 2 to 3 weeks. The market loves that. This is giving it certainty. It's telling it that this conflict has an end period. Now we can start to see, we can start to assess the level of risk with more certainty in the market, and we'll see capital rotate back into our favorite stocks. We'll see capital rotate back into tech and semiconductors and memory players overall. So for me, those 3 factors are a really positive sign. The conviction we saw from Micron and how it ended. We know the stories that I mentioned that caused it to decouple this morning, but we saw that afternoon reversal, that conviction to the end, the whale movement, the after-hour movement that I called out, the NASDAQ closing cross of 1.6 billion, and this headline now by President Trump giving a certainty to when this conflict and war will be over. I think we're going to see a second day of optimism, a second day of positive movement for stocks tomorrow, and that will be great to see. So there's a couple things I'm looking for tomorrow. I've laid them out here, but I'll say them again in closing. I am looking to see, will the macro environment hold overnight? I hope we don't get a story that breaks overnight that causes more risk or more escalation in the conflict. I hope we continue that what we see in headlines right now from both sides holds overnight, because if the market continues to price in a de-escalation of this war, the semiconductor and the tech sector, the semiconductor stocks and the tech sectors will continue to move higher. But if it reverses and we see further escalation, or we see headlines that bring more risk into that theater over there in the Middle East, then I think we'll see a reversal, and memory stocks will feel that immediately tomorrow. The second thing I want to see is Does Micron get the follow through tomorrow? That high conviction accumulation we saw to end today, will we see that tomorrow on the opening bell? Because today's reversal was strong and the close matters, but we need confirmation of that in tomorrow's trading session as well. If Micron can build on today's move, it suggests that the market is absorbing its concerns. The recent stories are coming out and what's been causing the volatility move with the stock. But if it stalls and we still see the storage players and SanDisk move while Micron is stalled, that is a clear sign to us that today was more of a rotation-driven rebound versus a full reset for the stock. But guys, the market gave us a clear signal today that it's not done with the memory trade yet. But it also showed us clearly that it potentially is getting a bit more selective where it places its bets inside the memory trade, though. So let's hope for a strong day tomorrow. Let's keep our eyes on the opening bell to see if Micron can continue that momentum that we're seeing not only at the close in the afternoon hours, but now we need to see it in the opening bell overall tomorrow. But guys, good day today. A lot of things for us to be positive about and to carry into tomorrow's actions. I hope you enjoyed the video. Drop some comments below. Let me know your thoughts. And if you haven't done it, hit that subscribe button. See you soon, guys.